and welcome to the Practice of the Practice podcast, where we help you build a thriving private practice you absolutely love. Now, if you missed it over the last 15 days or so, we're sorry, but on Wear Pajamas to Work Day on April 16th, that's where you could have used promo code PJ to get $200 off of your group practice conference ticket. That's right behind us. So hopefully you got that ticket and you're joining us May 4th here in Traverse City, Michigan. We are so excited about this huge event. We have about 20 people that will be speaking on the main stage between panels and keynotes. These are short 20-minute talks, really high impact. And then all of those folks are doing breakout sessions in addition to other folks. And so it's going to be conversations throughout an art gallery, deep connections, and really kind of quick hit learning. When you're a group practice owner, it's as much about conferences connecting with people as it is about the learning. I mean, if you just want to learn, you could listen to a podcast or be on a webinar. But in-person events are unique. We saw this when we hosted the seven-figure practice retreat in the Dominican Republic back in February. It was an amazing event to see 35 seven-figure practices just connect with each other, go deeper. And that WhatsApp group is still going crazy. People are sharing and giving ideas. And it's a level of support that you just don't get when you just join a webinar, you just listen to a podcast. Not that I want to dissuade you from listening to podcasts, but want to make sure that you know these in-person events are really important. They're ways to connect deeper. Which is why I'm so excited to have Adam Lewis Walker with me today. Adam helps experts to amplify their mission through TEDx style speaking, publishing, and podcasting. He's the founder of Amplify Your Mission, creator of Talk Accelerator, and an award-winning host recognized as top 10 dad in podcasting. Also, he is the newest member of the consulting team here at Practice of the Practice. We're actually having him help consult with all of the speakers that are going to be speaking at the Group Practice Conference, and we can't wait to have him help even more of our consulting clients. Adam, welcome to the show. Or I should say welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me. It's good to be here. We earned this. We worked for this.
We really did. We spent almost an hour figuring out technology to get to this point. Like sometimes people don't know what all goes into a podcast, and when tech hits the fan, it really hits the fan sometimes. But we are here. We've done something.
It will not stop us. Yeah, it's all good.
Yeah. Well, we were gonna break this up into a number of episodes, and I think that we were gonna do that over the course of a few weeks. But we're gonna condense kind of what we were gonna talk about into one episode today because we ran into these tech problems. But we'll definitely go into a deeper, longer series maybe later in the summer. But kind of the flow today that we're talking is kind of first we're gonna talk with all of you about just why people don't jump into public speaking, like what stands in the way of that. Then we're going to move into talking about crafting your message and what it really takes to craft a good message. And then lastly, we're going to move into just talking about how do you even find speaking gigs. So we're going to try to do kind of a micro version of what we were going to spend 90 minutes talking about into just half an hour here. So Adam, let's dive in. Why do people not go after public speaking?
Good question. I think it's like one of the top fears, literally on the planet. Some people literally fear public speaking more than death. So it's an insane one. I get it. It's all linked to being too bothered about what people think about you. Obviously, first impressions count. Like what's going on now? There's people looking at me and thinking, "What a muppet!" But it is what it is. So there's definitely it's the ultimate showcase. So you've got to have your stuff together. So I think it's an external thing, but you've got to do a lot of inner work. For me, if you're not feeling it, being up on stage in front of hundreds or thousands is literally the worst scenario for a lot of people. So yeah, I completely get it. So I think it's important to just be talking about something that's very important to you. I say to all my clients, like, no one's going to make you get up on stage and talk about something you ain't got a clue about. So it's that old thing of fail to prepare and prepare to fail. But you're going to be speaking about, if you're an expert in one random thing, we'll speak about that. Like you could be the world's best at tiddlywinks or something weird, and we're going to listen to you because we're not. So I think that's important, and it takes the pressure off. Like if you ask me to go and speak on a big stage about X, that would concern me. But if you said go and speak on a big stage about your area of genius, all day, because you're not faking it, you're not talking about something you're not authentic about, So I think that takes the pressure off. You just got to, really do the work to clarify what it is you are a bit of a legend at, or your area of genius, and then to package it so people understand what the hell you're talking about and make it interesting.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's really an important point. Just that people are scared because they think that they're gonna have to talk about something they're not prepared to talk about. What are other mindsets that maybe get in the way of taking steps to do more public speaking?
Um, People judging you, you know, that's huge. There's nowhere to hide when you're up on stage. But I just think that if anyone's listening to this, the benefits, the risk reward, just far outweigh it. If you think, a lot of people say, "Oh, I'm that good. I want a one-to-one conversation like we're doing now." Brilliant. But I mean, if you literally have the quality in your area of expertise and you're trying to help more people be on a mission, you can literally do this as we're doing now and amplify it out to hundreds and thousands. And those individuals, they're all individuals, are maybe resonating with your message and are going to reach out to you. And speaking on stage, there's nothing better if you get the right audience. You do your thing, and like I say, you're speaking once, and it may be a couple of hundred people. And in that couple of hundred people, there may be 20 people. You think percentages, oh, that's a small percentage. Imagine 20 people you've absolutely nailed and connected, and those are your people. And they're like, this is the person who's articulating what I'm thinking, and this is the next step for me. Or they've even, the beautiful thing is, even if they just have that one little nugget that just switches something in their brain, and they go off and dominate the world, and you might not even know about that, and then 10 years later they say, hey, I saw you speak, or you did this, and it really changed things for me. So I mean, it's all positives. If you do die on stage, what's the worst that could happen? I mean, if you're speaking about your area of genius and you dig into that, it goes down poorly, then probably it was the wrong audience, or you just had an absolute shocker. And it happens. And I've had some bad situations, and the positive of that is you've got that in your locker. You know what can happen, and basically 90% of the speaking gigs after, you're going to be like, well, it wasn't as bad as what happened before. And there's a link to, you do improv and stand-up comedy. All the greats have had absolute shockers, and they use that as a badge of honor, and that they can have that experience and take it forwards.
Well, it's interesting you brought this up. I recently organized a thing for our improv group where we watched Amy Poehler's masterclass on improv, and we all thought it was going to be a lot more about improv, but it was actually kind of about life and things like that, which was good. But she did this exercise where she did a masterclass on ridiculous things, like impromptu, like improvise, and just talked about how you can share stories from your life, and you can jump into situations that you may not know anything about, but even in there you can create an experience for people. Now, I think when I think about crafting your message, for most of us, it's like we do so much interesting work. We do trauma work, we do EMDR work, we work with families and couples, and maybe personally, I'm interested in Taoism, I'm interested in improv, I'm interested in connections between people. So it's like, to craft a keynote that's going to be picked up either for a TEDx or for a conference. To narrow that down, a lot of people feel like, do I really want to be known as like the divorced dad? Like, sure, that's part of my life, but do I want to have that be my identity? What are some of the techniques that, when you do consulting with people, that help them kind of sift through all their different areas of expertise to start to craft that message that's really worth hearing?
Great point. Action alleviates anxiety. So I know exactly what you're talking about, and it is that first step, because I felt exactly the same with my Awaken Your Alpha stuff. Do I really want to be known as, the men's personal development guy? And the issue is, when you haven't done anything, the first thing you do is everything. So by taking those steps and having that bigger picture and moving forwards, straight away the pressure comes off. But again, if you're like, I have this a lot with a TEDx talk with my clients, it's like, oh, what can they speak about? Because sometimes, they put so much pressure on, like, oh, this is it. Like, I'm never going to speak on anything again. I'm going to be known. This is going to blow up. It's going to have 100 million views, and everyone's going to be pointing at me in the street and saying, oh, I'm the weird person on this. Unrealistic, number one, but also just simple filter. if you had the world's ear for 10 minutes and everyone was listening, what would you talk about? And that kind of
Mm.
just clarifies and cuts out a lot of crap, because people overthink this and they think, oh, how do I want to be perceived? And, and a lot of other people's opinions. But if it's like, okay, if you could get everyone to listen and you're going to have a make an impact, what would you actually tell someone of value? Take it down to that individual. And not what you think might look good on LinkedIn, or what might get you a promotion, or what's going to get you more clients. So I think it just boils down to, how can you help, and what's the one thing you've got to say of value?
Okay. So someone starts to narrow things down. They think about that. I love that question of, if you had the world's ear for 10 minutes, what would you talk about? It's funny because I probably wouldn't talk about private practice. It's like I love talking about private practice, but even as you say
Would
that
you do
question,
4 hour
it's like,
work, 4 hour work, 4 day work week?
yeah, I mean, maybe I talk about the 4-day work week, but I think just that question gets my wheels turning, because it's like, okay, why do I care about the 4-day work week? Why do I care about private
Like,
practice?
what's
It's not
behind?
for the
Yeah.
sake of private practice. It's not for the sake of a 4-day work week. It's living a life worth living that impacts people, pays your bills, but also savors what we are as humans for this 80 or 90 years that we're on this planet. And so it's like, oh, like that's the motivating factor behind this, is people live too small for what they could. And so even as you say that, I'm like, man, am I talking about the wrong stuff? So once people land on something, how do we start to break that down into thinking about that topic more?
Okay. So let's just say, like, generally, everyone I work with, and by design, has got a good mission. They're usually reasonably clear on your mission. If you're not, you need to get clear on it, because that's in some ways basic. If you're on this journey, it's like what we talked about. What's important to you? What do you want to be known? Like, what area do you want to like devote yourself to? So that's usually pretty straightforward. That does not mean it's going to be a great talk. That does not mean it's going to be engaging. It just means, oh, that's your why. That's why you do something. So within that, you've got your whole area of expertise, whether it's, 4-day work week, helping therapists. That's like the broad sense. Within that, you've got peculiar, more interesting, attention grabbing, not intentionally, but they are aspects and little threads and ideas and approaches that you take, Joe. I'll just use you for an example. So you've got certain things that you do that are different to someone else who's on the same mission. So that's interesting, because that's bringing in your unique aspects. Then let's say you've got 3 of those. They're all like, oh, that's unusual. That no one else does that like that. Let's say out of those 3, one is way more unique and strange and interesting than the others. Just because I've got ideas that people are like, yeah, that makes sense. Oh yeah, that helps people. Yeah, that sounds really good. I understand why you're doing it. That does not mean that is a unique and powerful idea. It just means it's effective. So in terms of a talk on a short platform, or when you're trying to get eyes on it, for example, on the TED style platform, then it's like, what's your unique idea worth sharing? And again, that takes the pressure off, because a lot of people come to me and they're, oh, like I could do 5, 10 TED talks, and they're starting to say, oh, I want to do another one already, and I want to do this. I'm like, hey, just settle down, focus on one. Not, I've got 5 good ones. Well, they're not all as good as each other. And let's develop so the one is the winner, because let's assume you might only do one. Because why would you do 5 unless you mess it up 4 times? So let's just focus on one. You may be dead tomorrow, to be as blunt as it is. So focus on one. It's the same thing with a book. Focus on the one book. Yeah, it's nice to know. I'd love to do 6 books, but let's get one done right.
Yeah. I love that. So then, if we're looking at, we have 3 or 5 ideas that are under the umbrella of our mission. What makes a good attention grabbing topic? Because it's interesting. I hear lots of people talk about stuff and I'm like, oh yeah, that's great. And then often as they dig into it, I'm like, oh, that's very similar to what other people say. Like take Blue Ocean Strategy. Blue Ocean Strategy is talking about don't be where all the other sharks are and it's red water. Go out and find something unique. And then you look at like the book Play Bigger. They're talking about find that category that you can create. And then, I mean, whether it's all about standing out. But it's like the framing of it is so different between people, even though it's a very similar message. So I think some people get stuck on, well, it feels like this has been said before. You
Oh,
know,
look at
if
that.
I
Now,
even just saying like for me when I was like, okay, what's the reason about Thursday's the new Friday? What's the reason for practice the practice? Oh, it's like you can live a life that's worth living. We're here on earth for a short period of time. I mean, like the Buddha, Jesus, like Gandhi, all these great people talked about that. And so then it's like, well, what does Joe Samak have to say that stands out? How do we get out of that mindset and start to really get into the topic more?
you've got to be brutally honest with yourself, and it's very hard to do. And that's the value of coaching as well. You can't read the label of your own bottle. It's unbelievable, even with like lots of prompts, the amount of people who come to me and like that, the big reveal. I've got this unique idea. You've never heard this, and like, not even digging. It's not unique.
Right.
And there's nothing wrong with that. But it's the lack of awareness. Like we've all got something unique to say. I truly believe that, and it's just a process, and it's just we can all get there. And it's simply like, is it unique enough? No. Okay. Well, don't cry about it. Let's work on it. There is a process. The fact that we're aware of that, you're ahead of 90% of the game already. Yeah. So I mean, just asking that, is it a unique idea, and separate yourself from the idea. The idea is the star that takes the pressure off you stepping out there, because once the idea becomes the star, you write it down and then look at it, separate yourself and think, actually, if I was to deliver your idea, would you be interested in it? Because it should
Mm.
stand on its own merit. And then also, when it becomes so strong, that really pumps you up in terms of, it is selfish to sit on that idea because you know it's going to have an impact, you know it's going to help a lot of people. So get over your insecurities and don't be selfish, put it out there so it can help people now.
So take us through the process. You've kind of landed on your general idea. You've kind of landed on what feels like it stands out like a hook. Where do you go from there in regards to crafting the keynote, crafting the slides, the actual technical side of like bringing it to life?
Yeah. And I feel like we're leaning into the TED stuff quite a bit, which is fine, and that transfers virtually everywhere. But so I just keep it because I like to be real specific. So for TED, landing that TED talk, there obviously is a very specific formula, positives and negatives, because obviously it's been done a lot, and you're up against a lot of TED talks, and people expect a certain standard. That's good. So you definitely have to bring your A game. So in terms of crafting the idea, and as I say, focusing on the idea will get 80-90% of the talk sorted. If it's a very strong idea, it's gonna have good legs. So thinking in terms of talk titles is always a nice practical step. Can you picture that idea, with millions of views, with people clicking on that talk title? Because if they're not going to click on it, then there's zero views. Ultimately, they're breaking it right down there. So if that's weak, that's everything's going to come from that. So there are formulas. I mean, the amount TED is out there now, you can literally screenshot or research, use ChatGPT and say, pull me the top 10 TED Talks of all time titles, and you will see unbelievable amount of similarities. You will see that probably one of those top 10 has probably taken one of the top two and literally inserted their own subject matter. So you're talking about contrast as well. So it's how to make stress your friend. So stress and friend don't normally go together. Uh,
Mm.
you know, X, or like 10 things you didn't know about an orgasm or something like that. That's slightly attention grabbing, but that's up there. There's a lot of talk titles where they've used that contrast. So stress your friend. There's another one that's literally insert two different words that don't go together. So there is a formula. There's lots of how to's, because that individual is like, oh, I want to know how to do that. And again, they want to click on it because they think, oh, I massively agree with that. I've never heard anyone say that. That's what I've been thinking. Or I massively disagree with that. That sounds ridiculous. And so they're watching it either way. And so, don't be bland. If you've got an opinion, share it. Not everyone's going to like it. But obviously, for a platform like TED, it needs to be backed up with data, statistics, and a soul as well, story. If you're which I tend to work with a lot of super smart people, and they're so smart that is the problem sometimes, because they're in a lab and they're talking to other super smart people all the time about the area of expertise. The most basic thing to them is already over 90% of the population's heads. So I always like to say, I act as the muggle, and you need to explain what the hell you're talking about to someone who doesn't know about quantum physics or growing
Mm.
in a lab or whatever it is. And you should be able to explain your idea in a sentence to a sixth grader, and most of them can't.
Oh yeah. So you touched on story and research. Talk a little bit more about the importance of story, crafting a good story, research and stats, kind of that left and right side of the brain.
Yeah. I just look at it as data with a soul. As I said, you could be. We've all got that classic thought of that person who is so smart, the professor who just bores you to death, and then their knowledge is so vast. I would prefer someone who knows what they're talking about, but can entertain and engage and boil down your 30, 40 years of being super smart in this subject to something I can understand like that, something useful. Like sometimes it's like, oh, that's great information. Why? Like why does that impact me? Always think of the individual, I should say. I do sessions with clients sometimes, and I will just out the gate, I will just be like, hey, you said I, me, mine, this, that, like 90% of the time. What about the audience? Like, what about,
Hmm.
make it about them? Like, so yeah, sometimes um, it can be a very self-centered existence if you approach it in the wrong way. It's not about you being on the famous stage and doing your thing. It's about helping others. And like I say, the idea is the star. How can you help people? Why are they going to be bothered about this? And what is their action? What can they do instantly out the back of this to improve their life, ultimately improve the world, be on a mission? So there's just a few things there.
Mm. Now, what are some good like ways to start a story? I mean, there's of course like Once Upon a Time. I think some other ones I've heard is this one thing really changed my perspective, changed my. So you're kind of saying the change at the beginning. What are other just like sentences people can start with that helps them
I
get to that part of their like story center?
Yeah, my brain went instantly. And again, it's by doing the reps that you know this sort of stuff. So there I was.
Mm.
Beauty. Like where were you? Like straight away I'm thinking, interesting. Where were you? So there I was. Insert. You set the scene. I'm a big movie fan. I watch a lot of movies. I'd always take a movie over a series. But well, series got a lot better, but the issue is here, same sort of thing. I'm going to sit down for an hour and a half. Oh, how about same sort of concept? How about I just sit down and watch that someone has taken probably like 5 to 10 years to produce into an hour and a half? Just give me the good stuff. I love it. I absolutely love it. So for if I was to do my TED talk now, again, I did it in 2016. I didn't know what I didn't know, had zero help, and for me it shows. It's solid. It's fine. It was what it was at the time, but so a lot of times I'd come in, again, we talked about knowing what you're talking about, your stories or whatever it was. I'm assuming you're the expert on that. So I would come out and, you could literally, if I'm going to be speaking at your conference, there's a good chance that will be the first words out of my mouth. And I will
Mhm.
come in and I'll just plant myself on the stage. I'm not going to start saying, hey, I'm going to teach you about X, Y, and Z, and people glaze over. I'm going to why is that important and some origin, but again, not too much, because then it becomes all about you and like what the reason we're finding about this is because it's gonna engage people, and then they care about why you care about this, and also credibility of why on earth are you talking about this. So you've got to have some of that. So it's ratios are hugely important, and so I would go through with clients and filter that, because you could have the best story, engaging. You were kidnapped. You took all the hostage takers out and you escaped and you're a legend. But if you talk about that for 80% of the time, yeah, it's quite engaging. But they're also, in a lot of sense, think, well, how's that help me?
Yeah.
So that, yeah, have that awesome story, and let's thrive under constraints. Let's have that as 50% tops, and then
Mm.
weave in, and you could do all story and then all helping, or you could start a story and then just cut it off, and then you could give some teaching points, and then you could come back and close out that story. So one of my a favorite concept to think it in terms, we was talking about movies, watch Extraction and
Mm.
how that movie starts. I watched it again. It's a masterclass. It literally, maybe I'll start my talk with that because it's better than I can do. But literally, Chris Hemsworth, big fan. It starts with him just straight in. There's smoke coming up. he's like walking along, like bleeding, just there's explosions. You haven't got a clue what's going on, but that's literally, so there I was. And then it does a little bit, and it's so intense, and I mean, talk about attention grabbing, and then it just does the classic, like 24 hours earlier. And then it goes back to normal, and you get a breath, and you're like, what the hell? So they've literally shown the end of the movie in the first 20 seconds, and then the whole movie is getting back to that point. So in a speaking sense, if we're looking at mastery and how you can do this, you don't have to, but one option, okay? So you set the scene, and I'm going to do this. I haven't done this talk, so I'm not going to give it away, but an extreme situation, instead of just doing the lazy storytelling, which will still be good, but if you want to challenge yourself, you could literally drop them in at the peak, pinnacle, high tension moment, and they're like, what happened? And then you literally cut off and start talking about something else in the most basic sense, and they're just like, the brain is like, what the hell is happening? So they're waiting for you to close that loop. You have to close the loop, or that is just nasty, and people will be pissed off. But towards the end, ultimately, then you're going to close it and just, you know, leave everyone satisfied that's what happened, and just close that open loop. And you can do this with, you know, you can do this with like 3 short stories. You could open a loop, open a loop, open a loop, for a reason. It can't just be random. And then tactically you're teaching points, and then you're closing the loop, closing the loop, closing the loop. So, you know, there's different ways to, you know, to boil an egg ultimately.
Giving me so many good ideas for the group practice conference and the keynotes I'm doing there. Well, let's move into, how do you get keynotes? How do you get a TEDx? How do you get invited to speak at conferences? Like, what are the essential things? Like, is a speaker real needed? If so, what is that? Like, all those sorts of things in the last little bit that we have here.
Yeah. Again, I'll just focus on TED for starters, just because, again, that's kind of a key area of mastery for me, and be the most potent with the time we got. Don't have verbal diarrhea to the organizer, because I'm not doing it at the moment, but over the last 7-8 years, I've done hundreds, it's probably getting close to 1,000, hundreds of idea strategy sessions. And I used to offer them free, because the only way to work with me is face to face. I need to make sure, and vice versa, that it's a fit, and they're going to appreciate the way I talk, and vice versa, they're going to, you know, take on coaching points. So that first phase, they come and they just tell me their best idea, and straight away I know if they gave this idea pitch to an organizer in 1 hour's time, it would be 100% better, because they basically get their verbal diarrhea out on me, and I'm like, you know, we need to sharpen this up a little bit. So do not think it out loud to an organizer. Prepare. That puts you 90% ahead of people straight away, because always the same. People come in thinking they're doing good, they've got a good message, they've got a good mission. That's enough. If you're stepping into an arena like TEDx talks, that's a base level. That's a given. No one gets up there trying to, you know, that's doing dodgy things, or is trying to do something shady, or is purely money motivated. They some probably do actually, but they ideally get filtered out, and you stand out a mile in that sense. So it's like, okay, give that as your base level, because probably 80% of these idea pitches I get for TED, it comes in with, I had some adversity, I overcame adversity, I'm great. That is generic. It's so generic, but it's amazing to me that people think that is not. So, okay, tweak that just one little bit. This happened to me. I got over it by X, Y, and Z. This is what I learned. So you don't have to go through that. This is what you can take from. What's that unique idea, perspective that you gained from that adversity? Okay, so then the story backs it up. Then I can't share your idea because I'm not uniquely positioned to share it, whereas you will be. So that's how you bring in your personal story, if relevant. But it's not about your story. It's about the idea. It's about what you learn. So that's huge. Yeah. So again, having that sounding board to just, you know, I could say, oh, that's a great idea, carry on, you know, no skin off my nose, but that's a disservice, and they will be banging their head against a brick wall for years to come and not get a TEDx, and they won't know why, because TEDx organizers do not give you feedback unless you're successful. So when you're not successful, And I've had meetings with people who are like, I've applied to 300 TEDx events. I don't know what's going on. 10 seconds in, I know what's going on. And then they're not going to reply to 300 more if they do these slight tweaks.
So good. So much more to learn from you, Adam. I'm so excited to have you be on the main stage at the group practice conference, to also be doing breakout sessions, discussions, conversations, and then also to have joined our consulting team. We're so excited to have you join Practice of the Practice. The last question I always ask is, if every private practitioner in the world were listening right now, what would you want them to know?
Ooh, that's a good one. Yeah, you got the goods. You are enough. You've got what we've been speaking about. It's all about packaging. It's all about pulling it out. Yeah, and don't be selfish, especially therapists. I'm sure you're not. You know how you can help people. So if you're letting your insecurities and fear of doing the work get in the way of you helping hundreds or thousands of people, it's up to you. But yeah, it's about how you can help people. It's about the idea, and the pressure is you think, oh, I don't want to speak about that. That's a bit unique or weird. No. That is the right idea for that platform. What I speak about on TED is different to what I speak about on Practice of the Practice, is different to what I speak about on my podcast, it's different to what I speak about to Jim in the street. So it's about tailoring it to the platform, tailoring it to the audience, and ultimately reverse engineer. How can you have the impact? So if you give a TED style talk to someone in the street, I'm going to guess that's a little bit weird and it's not going to have the impact you desire.
So awesome. Well, if people want to work with Adam, head on over to practiceofthepractice.com/apply. We do a 30-minute free pre-consulting call. We'll talk not just about your public speaking goals, but your private practice goals, your book launch goals, podcast goals, all of it. I'll individually meet with you over at practiceofthepractice.com/apply. Adam, thank you so much for being on the show today.
No problem. I was just thinking as you're saying that, I do publish a book or two. So this is it boiled down. TEDx, TalkX effect, I should say. So that's a nice, intentionally short book. If you want to dig into what we've been speaking about as well, that's just get it done.
So awesome. Thanks for being on the show.
No worries.
As we continue to level up our careers, oftentimes it's public speaking, podcasting, writing that's part of it. The things that you're doing in sessions every single day, the world needs to hear. And I have so many notes from Adam today. If you had the world's ear for 10 minutes, what would you say of value? Having that clear mission and then attention grabbing, looking at story and research as being data with a soul. And then that storyline of, so there I was. I mean, in a world full of, it's framing out what's the reality right there. So there I was. Where were you? There are so many times that I'm sure that you had moments that shifted your perspective, helped you think differently about therapy, helped you think differently about human consciousness, or just what it means to be human. Start capturing those stories, start writing them down. You never know where they're going to pepper in. The reason it was so easy to write Thursday is the New Friday, I literally signed my contract on April 15th of 2020 and turned in my manuscript on September 2nd, 2020. So just a handful of months, was that I had gathered stories and research for years. Stories and research that I had no idea where it was going to fit into something that I would talk about. And so then when I just had to start organizing it, the stories and the chapters and the links between things really started to write themselves in a lot of ways. So start capturing those stories. You don't know where they're going to be needed. You don't know when you're going to get a last minute keynote or a lunch and learn or some gigantic thing. So just start capturing those things and listen through this again. Come to the group practice conference. You can get tickets over at practiceofthepractice.com/conference. We're hosting that with the United Way, NMC Student Life, and Headway. All are part of putting on this conference. Also, if you have any payroll issues, if you want access to HR experts, if you want to have things be super simple when it comes to your HR, your payroll, and you're sick of maybe your accountant screwing that up, would love for you to join Gusto. Gusto.com/Joe. You're going to get to run your payroll for free for 3 months. After you run your first payroll, it's free for 3 months. So again, that's Gusto.com/Joe. Thank you so much for letting me into your ears and into your brain. Have a great day.